This episode of Love Larn is sponsored by Scott Bonnar Fabrication and Parts. Next on the list is getting this cork onto that intermediate clutch, glued down with some contact adhesive basically. This is the Selleys Kwik Grip, just from Bunnings. I get more than enough for one mower out of this tube for the two corks and maybe your chain case rubbers. The approach I'm going to take today involves getting some of this contact adhesive on both surfaces that I want to adhere. Just got a little credit card cut up, which I'm going to use to smear that around with. And then I'll get the other side of the clutch on there, pop the bolt through there, tighten it up, and that will give us a little bit of clamping pressure for this sucker. There is a bit of setup time before you can push this stuff together. It's not long though. It's let's see, it's not a warm day today by any means. It's not a cool day here, and I think the last cork I did took about sort of 5 minutes to set up. The back of the tube, the instructions say to leave it for 20 minutes and no more than 40. I think that would easily do it. Just get that sort of smeared around, flattened out. Could just pop the cork itself on here to sort of smear it around, but just want to make sure that I've got sort of a good even coverage. Just while I'm thinking of it, so I've sort of smeared out to the edge a little bit here. The cleanup for this stuff is just mineral terps while it's still wet, before it's cured rather. If you're wondering why I'm using a cut-up credit card, I find this this sort of shape is really kind of handy for getting into the clutch half for the cutter clutch. And just making sure this stuff's all smeared out to the edges. This one's the easy one because it just sort of presses down right on top of that plate. The cutter clutch is not quite so straightforward because of the angle of the cone and the the fact that you're putting it inside of that that clutch half. We'll go through that. We'll give that 5 minutes and carry on from there. Just a thought while this stuff's drying and clearing my brain. It's really stinky and not the sort of stuff you want to be breathing in, so make sure you're doing this in a well ventilated area. Just make sure that you follow the instructions, of course, and be safe. Just come in and check on this stuff now. It's still a little bit sort of gluggy looking in a few spots. It's been 5 minutes. I'll give it just a little bit longer to dry out before we mush it all together. So as I mentioned, once that cork's on there, we'll get the big sprocket, pop that down over the top and screw it up tight so that we've got some extra clamping pressure on there to hold everything firmly while the glue really sets up. I think this is about as dry as it's going to get. For now, I'm going to drop this cork down, just sort of feeling my way and eyeballing it at the same time. Just making sure the overhang is about the same all the way around. Give it a light press. Feels good. Mush it down a bit more. Mush, mush, mush. Just looking in here and thinking maybe I should have given that a bit of a paint, but oh well, too late now. Get the edges, catch the spanner, line up the roll pin on that guy, pop him on, slide that bolt in, flip her over, and I've just got a little card here to protect my paint, washer for good measure, and a little socket just to raise that level up into the thread zone. So I'll just get that finger tight and then come back just snug it up just a little bit more. Doesn't need to be crazy tight because the contact adhesive will do the job. Give that a little while just to do its thing, and we can move on to the cutter clutch in the meantime. Alright, so here we go again. I've got the chain case cover side of the clutch shaft, clutch cone sitting in there, and you can see I've got the cork in there as well. It's just dry fit at the moment. I'm a bit dumb, so I like to make sure that everything's going to fit before I start putting glue all over everything. This Corks cut on a curve, I'll show you in a minute, to fit the inside of this clutch half, which is obviously angled to fit the angle of the clutch cone. Just pop that out of there. I just mainly left that in there for a few minutes just to let that sort of form up a little bit as much as anything. I'm going to lay that down so I know which side I need to glue, since it's just come out of there. But before I do, you can just see the curvature of that thing. So before we get the glue on there, you just need to note the lip on the outside of this clutch shaft. We want that cork sitting right up against that lip, so it's going to go all the way down, and there'll be a little bit of a gap at the top. So again, I've got my little spreader, got my Selleys Kwik Grip contact adhesive, which I'm going to start laying down on here. You need enough to do the job, but you don't want it squeezing out either. At least not too much. A little bit's not going to kill anything. Again, as per the intermediate clutch, you want to be doing this in a well ventilated area so that you're not breathing too much of this stuff in. Because it stinks and it's probably not very good for you. Alright, that's just starting to run just a tiny bit, so I'm going to catch this one first and start taking it around. A few of these sort of snot bubbles and stuff just to spread out yet, but that's pretty good, I think. And same thing up here. We're just going to sort of spread this out towards the sides from the center. And on the end. And then we'll leave this to set up for 5 or 10 minutes. And stick it in there. A little bit on the ends so we get a nice good seam, and we'll leave that alone for, I'll try to stick my fingers in it. Leave that alone for a few minutes. Here we go. Got my clutch cone all set. That's going to fit in there like so. And it's got to squeeze down there all the way to the lip. So what I'm going to do is kind of roll this up and try not to touch anything. And I'm going to push that down and hard up against that edge as we go. I don't want to end up with any overlap. It's sticking to me a little bit, and a little bit of a lip to cram in there. Just push that down right to the inner lip as much as we can. And I think that's pretty good. A bit of a seam there, but hopefully once the cone gets in there, it'll help push everything into place. So I've got a block of wood and a set of clamps. What I'm going to do with these guys is press that bit of wood on the outer edge of the cork to pull everything together nice and snugly, just like so. Just enough pressure until it's good and snug.